Going over IRS Form W-2, wage and tax statement. So most employees should receive a W-2 from their employer no later than January 31st of the year after the year that they're reporting their income. So for the 2024 tax season, you should expect your Form W-2 to be delivered to you either electronically or by mail no later than January 31st, 2025. So uh, I've done this video a couple years ago. I'm going to go through this again. There's not a whole lot of updated information in terms of changes in the form between the last couple of years, like there is with a lot of other forms and schedules. However, there are questions that I've answered over the past couple of years that might be useful for this video. So I've gotten questions from people that are W-2 employees as well as people that are business owners looking to issue W-2s. So I'll try to address both sets of audiences the best way that I can. Before we go into the depths or the details of this form, I'll kind of address this for the larger audience. If you're an employer and you're issuing W-2s to your employees, what you should be cognizant of is that you would issue your W-2s to each employees, and then when you submit the copy to the IRS, which happens to be so this is the Social Security Administration. My apologies. So copy A goes to the Social Security Administration, and you would accompany this with IRS Form W-3, which is the wage and tax statement transmittal document. So what that does is it's a summary statement that tells the Social Security Administration, let's say you're reporting on 5 employees. It will be a form that says, here are 5 employees. Here is the total of all of their individual boxes, like their wages and Social Security wages and things of that nature, and then each W-2 should add up to the totals listed on the W-3. So it's known as a transmittal document. If you're an employer and you miss, I recently answered this question. If you miss a W-2 for an employee, then you would simply issue that employee a W-2, and when you submit that W-2 to the SSA office, you would submit it with a separate W-3 document. So if you had 6 employees and you submitted or you gave 5 of them a Form W-2, you would accompany those W-2s with the W-3 transmittal document. And then if you had to go back and issue a separate W-2 for that employee that you forgot about, that would have a second Form W-3 with just that W-2's information on top of it. And then if you need to issue corrected versions, there are corrected versions, W-2C and W-3C respectively. So you'll see that there are several different copies. If you live in a state that doesn't have an income tax, you probably won't be receiving copy 1, right? So that's all of this information here. Or if you receive, because that would be for your state or local tax return. So these fields 15 through 20 are usually voluntary. There are 2 categories here. So if you have income or you earn income in 2 different states, then your employer can issue a W-2 that lists 2 different states worth of information. So what we'll do is we'll go through this starting with the left hand side. We've kind of started pre-filling this form, and then I stopped to hit record on this video. So at the very top, you should, if you're receiving this form, verify that your Social Security number is correct. This is going to be tied directly to your Social Security benefits. So, all of these wages that are reported to the SSA, they get captured in their system to calculate your eventual Social Security benefits. And a lot of times people have asked me why they're Social Security benefits information is incorrect. It's hard to go back over 30 or 40 years worth of working history to find a mistake that was generated on a W-2 back in the 90s. So each year you should keep an eye on these numbers to make sure that they're reported properly. So in this case, our hero John Doe, we've got his Social Security number, we've got his employer identification number, and then we've got his employer's address. A control number is an optional number. You might not see it on your W-2. Employers don't need to use this, but it is a way that they can maybe serialize or chronologically order individual W-2s for their internal records keeping. So all right, so employee's name and address. Make sure that this is correct. If you've recently moved, you should probably update your address with your employer as well as with the IRS. With the IRS, you would simply submit IRS Form 8822. That's the official change of address form. And all these forms that we're mentioning, by the way, we'll put links to articles and videos that we've created in the show notes for your benefit. So let's go ahead and go to the right-hand side of the form. We're going to talk about the items that go into individual boxes. So box 1 is known as the wage tips or other compensation. So this includes exactly what it says: wages, tips, other compensation. It does not include elective deferrals. So if you're contributing to your 401k, it doesn't include that, except for 501c 18 contributions. However, you should see total wages, bonuses, non-cash payments, tips, certain employee business expense reimbursements, contributions to an Archer MSA. There's a long list of other things that are included in box 1. So kind of be sure that you're aware of that. Box 2 contains the amount of actual federal income tax withheld. That's generally based on direction that you've given to your employer through IRS Form W-4. We'll put a link in the show notes to W-4 resources as well. Those are probably some of my most frequently asked questions: how to adjust federal tax withholding. So if you have that question, I would recommend by starting with the article and the video, walk through your particular situation, and then refer to the long list of questions and answers that are in the comment section for W-4. So box 2 also includes any the 20% excise tax withheld on excess parachute payments. Social Security wages include certain asset or certain compensation that's included here. There are certain deferrals that may not be included as part of Social Security wages that are not includable under FICA. And it's important to note that the Social Security wages only go up to the wage base, right? So let's imagine that this is $200,000. You would not see $200,000 here. You should only see the maximum for 2024, which happened to be $168,600. So that's what you should see in there. And then let's imagine that your maximum Social Security withheld, which is 6.2% of your Social Security wages, it should not be greater than that number right there. this is for the 2024 tax season. If you're talking about 2023, it's going to be different because this number is adjusted for inflation each year. Medicare wages and tips should be the same as the wages that are subject to Social Security tax, except there is no limit. So in this case, let's say it would be $200,000. And then the tax withheld, there is no limit. It's 1.45% of that, except for if there's additional Medicare tax withheld. So depending on your taxpayer status, if your income is over a certain dollar amount, then you may have the extra Medicare tax withheld. But on this dollar amount, let's imagine that this is 1.45% of $2,000, so that would be $2,900, I believe. That sounds about right. Social Security tips. These would be tips that you reported to your employer, even if there weren't enough employee funds to collect the actual tax on those tips. So the totals of box 3 and box 7 should not exceed $168,600. So no matter how much Social Security tips you actually received, this amount would be zero if the wages were indeed that amount. Allocated tips. So for certain large food or beverage establishments, like large chain restaurants, then they're required to allocate tips to employees, kind of spreading the wealth, if you will. So if your employer falls under those rules, you may see allocated tips reported here. So, and then there's an associated form, IRS Form 8027. That's the employer's annual information return of tip, income, and allocated tips. So this wouldn't necessarily be reported in any of these other boxes. It's reported here and then summarized on IRS Form 8027. Box 9 is blank. There's literally nothing in the instructions about that. Dependent care benefits. So this would be under a dependent care assistance program. This would be the fair market value of care in a daycare facility, any amounts that were paid under a cafeteria plan. So this would be any amounts paid or incurred, including those amounts above the $5,000 exclusion that's offered under cafeteria plans. So it could be the fair market value of in-kind benefits that the employer provides, like if they have in-facility daycare, they could report that to you. It could be an amount paid directly to a daycare facility by the employer, or it could be any amount in a pre-tax contribution that the employee made under a cafeteria plan. Non-qualified plans. So the purpose of this box right here is for the SSA to determine if any part of either box 1 or box 3 or box 5 was earned in a prior year. So non-qualified plans like a non-government 457 plan, like if there was a distribution from your 457 plan, it would show up here. So that would also be included in the total here. So you could safely say $200,000 of wages, tips, and other compensation, $10,000 was from a prior year. And so there should only be one entry in this box. If you participate in a governmental 457 plan, then that would be on IRS Form 1099-R, not on your W-2. So under either non-qualified plans or non-governmental 457 plans, deferred amounts that are no longer subject to a risk of forfeiture are taxable even if not distributed. So technically, that would mean any part that's vested as opposed to not vested amounts, if they're deferred, they're technically taxable. So that would be reported in box 3 up to the Social Security wage limit. In box 5, no limit. However, box 11 would not contain any current year services. We do go into a little bit more detail in our article, so if you need to drill down into any particular spot, just check out the article. We do go into a lot of detail, especially about the codes that you'll see in lines 12A, B, C, and D. So your employer can put up to 4 different codes here. They may need to issue a second W-2 if you have more than 4 codes that apply. So there's an entire list of codes. They go from code A through basically code Z, and then they start going into code double A, double F, double G, all the way to double I. So we won't go into more detail. If you need to drill down on a specific code, check out our article. Go to the box 12 steps, and you'll see the entire list. Basically, this is where your 401k contributions, your Roth 401k contributions, employer contributions to either an HSA or an Archer MSA, different simple plans, adoption benefits, income from exercising non-statutory stock options, so on and so forth. So if you have particular questions, I've been doing this for a while, and even I will go back and double check every single code that appears on a W-2 just to make sure I understand the context of what that was. Like, was it a contribution to a Roth plan, or was it coded as a contribution to a traditional plan? Because that may make a difference if it was coded improperly. So take a little bit of time to kind of go through those and understand them for yourself. In box 13, there are 3 different check boxes. So we'll walk through briefly what each of those means. So if box 3 is checked, that means that you are a statutory employee. It means that your earnings are subject to Social Security and Medicare taxes, but they're not necessarily subject to federal tax withholding. So there's a difference between common law employees that are actually independent contractors but treated as employees versus a statutory employee that's defined by the IRS. And there are 4 categories of statutory employees. So a driver who distributes beverages besides milk, beverages or meat, vegetable, fruit, or bakery products, or picks up and delivers laundry or dry cleaning. 2, a full-time life insurance sales agent whose primary business activity is selling life insurance, annuity contracts, or both. 3, an individual who works at home on materials or goods that you supply as the employer and that must be returned to you or someone that you've designated if you have specific or specifications for the work that needs to be done. And then 4, a full-time traveling salesman who works on your behalf and in turn orders to you from wholesalers, retailers, hotel operators, or other establishments. So basically a traveling buyer. So those are defined in the form instructions as statutory employees. If you're not one of those and you see this checked, there might be something wrong, but that usually doesn't happen. The retirement plan checkbox, so this would be checked if you're considered an active participant in any qualified plan, a qualified annuity plan, a SEP IRA, a simple plan, a plan for federal, state, or local government employees, so like the thrift savings plan. And generally an active participant is someone that's covered by a defined benefit plan for any tax year that they're eligible to participate in, or that they're covered by a defined contribution plan. So if you're participating in that, you're going to see that checked. And then third-party sick pay. only applies if uh, if you're receiving a W-2 from a sick pay payer that is a third party that's not your company. And sometimes that happens, but not too often. So you might receive your normal company W-2, and then you would receive a supplementary W-2 from your third party sick pay provider. Box 4 is an other box, so it can contain other things that your employer wishes to communicate to you. So it would be information like state disability insurance taxes withheld, or uniform payments, health insurance premiums that you deducted, non-taxable income, so educational assistance payments. So if you see this, it has to be written out. Something like that, right? So boxes 15 through 20, these are all state information. If you don't see this, you're probably in a state that doesn't have an income tax, but I'll use Florida, even though that's clearly a state that doesn't have an income tax. Um, so we'll put in their random ID number that the employer has with the state. It's probably going to be different from the EIN. Then, according to state rules, how much of your income is subject to state income tax? Let's just say it's that. And then let's say that the withholding for the state income tax was 1%, so you should expect that to see $2,000. And then if I live in the city of Tampa and they have a local tax, which they don't, then you would see $200,000 here. Let's imagine their state income tax was also $2,000. And then you might see something in here for box 20 about the locality. And there's space here for 2 different states. So a lot of people may, you know, live in one state and work in another state, and they're subject to state income tax that they have to do the offset thing on their state returns. So, you know, common one would be New York, and then New Jersey, and then you would see 2 rows of information here. So the important thing is, if you don't receive your Form W-2 by the end of January 31st, you have every right to ask for one from the employer. And the IRS allows a one-time 30-day extension period for employers. Once you're beyond that 30-day extension, say by the end of February, there should be absolutely no reason why they don't have your W-2 ready for you. So, I mean, at the time of this recording, it's January 16th. My wife has her W-2 from a job last year. So a lot of people have theirs available electronically. So just check with your HR department. There is an avenue that you can use to kind of reach out to the IRS. So I'll put a little note in the show notes about the form that you would use to go through that process. I'm going through my FAQs to see what information that's pertinent that I haven't already covered. So, you know, a lot of state income tax questions, I think I've covered those. Everything else is pretty straightforward. So if you need more detail, definitely check out our article. We'll put that link in the show notes. And we'll put links in the show notes to resources we've created about other forms and articles mentioned. So if you like articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to see a video about another topic that you have in mind, please hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.